Welcome back to Lotus on Track. We're here at Brands Hatch with a huge crowd, having enjoyed the DTM action, sticking around to watch the Lotus Cup UK, and why not, one of the many visitors here to Brands Hatch this weekend, former Lotus on Track Elite Trophy racer Jake Humphrey, who now does something with the BBC involving Formula One. He's here watching the drivers he raced against a couple of years ago in action, as leading the way it is Chris Randall within second place, Adrian Hall, then Rob Fenn, Jack Goff, Paul McNeely, and then at the back of that train, Marcus Jewell in the orange and black Lotus 211. They accelerate through on to complete another lap. The top six very closely bunched at the moment, following a safety car about 10 minutes into the race. That really bunched the pack up, and since then Chris Randall has not been able to pull out an advantage over the rest of the field. And let's not forget, of course, the Lotus Cup UK, the races involve a mandatory pit stop, these longer races, so the race will be turned its head midway through. So Randall has got to focus building as much advantage he can. There are the production class and production championship leaders going through. It's Fulvio Musi just ahead of Rob Boston. This the fight for third, and it's Ken Savage just up ahead of Stuart Plotnick. They go past Doug Setters, who's in one of the other classes, but he's mixing at the moment with the production class runners. And new for 2012, the production class has got its own championship, and these drivers racing for championship points. Well, the yellow car, Ken Savage, was the runner-up in last year's championship, having suffered wretched disappointment here at Brands Hatch in the final round where the car failed. He's being chased down by the ex-MG racer Stuart Plotnick. Plotnick very successful in MGs, then he saw the light and moved across to racing Lotuses, where he has really taking the opportunity to learn the car, develop the car, and is now a consistent front runner as he challenges Savage for third in the production class, accelerating through clearways and on to complete another lap. Doug Setters in reasonably hot pursuit on the pair of them. The straight line speed should enable Setters to pull past Stuart Plotnick, and then Plotnick somewhat quicker through the corners. This is all good news for Ken Savage. He would absolutely love to have the car of Doug Setters between himself and Stuart Plotnick. It means he doesn't have to worry about defending his position and can set off in pursuit of Fulvio Musi and Rob Boston, who currently lead the class. So round the hairpin at Druids and on towards Graham Hill Bend he goes, as we see a replay of Andy Napier and Lee Hodson tagging and tangling with each other at Surtees, both rotating, somebody taking to the grass for cover. There is Hodson, he's recovered towards the back of the field, he's just up ahead of Colm Flanagan, and they're about to go a lap down on the leader, and Chris Randall is now being really chased quite heavily here by Adrian Hall and Rob Fenn. It rather seems that from the pressure being exerted by Rob Fenn, it's given Adrian Hall the hurry up, and he is then coming up to the tail of Chris Randall. At the same time, Randall's probably got one eye towards the clock. He knows there's 40 minutes left in this race, and he doesn't want to push that Lotus Europa any harder than he has to. The Europa has been formidably fast in the past few rounds of the Lotus Cup UK, but it has suffered some reliability issues. There's the recovering Andy Napier. He has got Jack Goff on his tail, and then still Paul McNeely in the bright yellow car as well. They head past Paul Baker, so Baker moving himself aside as the leading group of cars all stream through. And this is when it gets really tricky, because they've got to carve their way through the traffic past these production class cars, which are having a race of their own. They're racing their own set of championship points. The vastly experienced Chris Randall is racing a good number of things aside from Lotuses, but it really is Lotus where he's had his most success in recent seasons. He's then got Adrian Hall in very hot pursuit, and Rob Fenn still going well in the Go Green Motorsport machine, accelerating out of Graham Hill Bend, charging through this traffic. Now they're going to have half a lap of relatively clear track, and this could give the opportunity to Adrian Hall to make a move. They accelerate out of Clark Curve now, and Randall is definitely being reeled in here by Adrian Hall. I just wonder if that Europa isn't working quite as Randall would like it to, because having in the early stages of the race built out quite a significant advantage over Rob Hall, you can see there his advantage is now down to just about half a second, and that really isn't a comfortable margin, particularly with the pit stops to come later. And you can certainly see from the body language and poise of the Europa that Randall is really pushing here. He covers the inside line through Druids, and then out of Druids on towards Graham Hill Bend. It's now 3 for the lead, because Rob Fenn has latched himself onto the tail of this battle. So Randall in Hoffman's back car accelerates out of Graham Hill Bend with Adrian Hall and Rob Fenn, ever-present shadows, on towards Surtees, and another group of traffic just up ahead of them. Across the curbs the trio travel, and then on towards clearways, and again Randall having to cover his line. He slows, and Randall slows. Adrian Hall goes through. So does Rob Fenn, and something's gone very badly wrong there for Chris Randall. Now, was that just a misgear and he'll get up to speed, or was that something far more serious? Unfortunately, it looks to be the latter. Randall peels off, so unfortunately it's Randall and Europa, car possibly deceased, because his race, certainly with regards to championship points and the victory, seems to be all over. Well, he's probably on the radio back to the team saying what's gone wrong as he checks the mirror just to make sure it's okay to get out of the car. Now that is in a very, very exposed position there as well. We might see a safety car intervention here, because he's pretty much exactly in the firing line of where Mark Goudet went off a little bit earlier on in the race. Well, now that releases Adrian Hall and Rob Fenn's battle for the lead, as we see once more from Randall. He just seemed to ask the car to accelerate out of clearways. It didn't happen, and the car pretty much slowing to an absolute halt. He was able to use the downhill run out of Clark Curve just to be able to pilot the car off the circuit and to a place of safety. Well, still carving on through the traffic, we have got Adrian Hall and Rob Fenn. They just are now in and amongst some of the production class runners climbing up towards Druids. One of the production class runners, though, not going any further, and spinning off is Colm Flanagan. Now, what happens here to Colm? Bright orange car offline. Car just spun, and into the gravel trap he goes. Remember Joe Winkelhock doing that in the British Touring Car Championship round there back in the early 1990s. So he's not the only person who's made that mistake there, Colm Flanagan. As the marshals push Chris Randall down the pit lane and back to his pit box. Rob Fenn is right on the tail of Adrian Hall. There's Flanagan's stricken Elise. So they've got a couple more of the Elises to clear on the run along the Bramham Straight, in car with Glenn Sherwood. He's about to try and put a lap here on Lee Hodson, up the inside into Graham Hill Bend. Has Lee seen him? That'd be a no then, wouldn't it? Because they make contact. Lee just runs wide. It was the slightest of glances. Hodson turned in, realised Sherwood was there, immediately tried to give him racing room, and in the background, Andy Napier. It was third time again with a rotation for Andy Napier, and that one, unfortunately, a solo effort. Although in his defence, he would have seen the contact ahead of him, probably just jumped on the brakes to make sure he didn't get entangled, and that was enough to tip the car into a spin. Back to the leaders and in car with Rob Fenn as he works the wheel in pursuit of Adrian Hall. Turning through clearways, still yellow flags there as the recovery continues, and then taking the run out of Clark Curve and on to the Bramham Straight. And Fenn's got a good run here on Adrian Hall. That gap has definitely come down over the course of the past lap or so. It's Adam Knight who they're about to lap in the number 15 car, and Knight gives plenty of daylight to Adrian Hall on the inside in towards Paddock Hill Bend, and then Rob Fenn able to carve past him on the exit of Paddock, climbing up towards Druids, and he closes onto the tail there of Adrian Hall. And Hall, maybe he was just caught napping slightly, because that was really an awful lot of time to take out of Hall under braking to the hairpin at Druids, as they then accelerate out of Graham Hill Bend, and that gap is still coming down as we tick onwards towards the pit stop window opening and those driver changes happening. Well, there's no driver change for Adrian Hall, he's a single effort, whereas Rob Fenn hands over to his dad David Fenn. Now David is pretty quick in his own right, but he's maybe not quite as quick as son Rob, so Rob wants to get into the lead and then try and build a bit of a buffer for his dad to inherit. At least that's the master plan as they streak through and on to start another lap. Closing under braking in towards Paddock Hill Bend, Rob Fenn just lips the apex. He's within a couple of car lengths now of Adrian Hall out over the curves, and Hall again goes defensive into Druids, so Rob Fenn looking to the outside. He's just showing himself in Adrian Hall's mirrors, maybe trying to get the switch back down the hill towards Graham Hill Bend. He's not close enough to this, and this is super driving from Rob Fenn, because essentially what he's doing is he's not really trying to make a move or a lunge on Adrian Hall, rather he's trying to force Adrian into making a mistake, always showing himself in his mirrors, letting Adrian know that he's there, and trying to force Adrian to drive with his mirrors rather than his windscreen, and that is enabling that gap to come right down. They close onto the tail of Tom Bradshaw in the number 17 car that he shares with Neil Livesey. They should be able to get past Tom. He's a fairly experienced driver without too much difficulty. Accelerating along the Bramham Straight, they do that, and still this threading battle for the lead continues. Again, Rob Fenn taking a very high swooping line down through Paddock. Is he going to get the run up towards Druids here? And again covering the inside lines, Adrian Hall, but then he sells in the dummy, and Fenn's going to go for it here up the inside into Druids. Do they make contact? No. Adrian Hall saw him at the last minute, gave him racing room, and through went Rob Fenn. That was an absolutely brilliant move from Rob Fenn. Adrian Hall thought he'd done enough to cover the corner, and Rob Fenn just launched to the inside. Although looking to fight back, they're about to come onto the tail of Plotnek, and Ken Savage still fighting for third and fourth in the production class. And they are also very, very near to the pit window opening here, so Rob Fenn is going to try and now build a bit of an advantage over Adrian Hall as they accelerate on to complete another lap. Hall still looking to fight back and reclaim the lead of the race from Rob Fenn. Across the line they come, no opportunity in towards Paddock as the pit window is well and truly open. First car in, that's Glenn Sherwood to hand over to 2010 British GT4 champion Jamie Stanley. So Glenn decided to give Jamie the meat of the race to see what he can do with the Exige, although in all fairness to Glenn, he has really come on leaps and bounds in the past season or so. Sharing the car with Jamie Stanley, he's been getting quicker and quicker. Also the pit stop and the interchange between Paul McNeely and BJ Chong. Paul, you can see he was in the car, he's the one with the bright red face from the exertion. Steve Williams also takes his opportunity to peel into the pit lane as out into the race goes Jamie Stanley. Father and son combination, Doug and Chris Setters, about to change over, and there's the race lead for Adrian Hall, coming to a halt at the near end of the pit lane. So Adrian Hall taking his pit stop pretty much at exactly mid-race. It's a mandatory 3-minute pit stop here, so the drivers generally get out of the car, take the opportunity to have a drink, and then some of the teams taking the opportunity to top up the fuel of the car as well. Marcus Jewell, one of those drivers who started the race with tanks half empty, and now going to fill it up because it is worth a couple of tenths of a second a lap. Also into the pit lane as well is Gavin Kershaw. That's to hand over to Adrian Lester. Back into the car comes Marcus Jewell. So as the pit stops continue here at Brands Hatch, we're going to take a break. Join us a couple moments time for more action from Lotus on Track.